Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Power Rangers episodes. So, I am, of course, going to go on and cover Power Rangers Wildforce episodes 24 and 25, Reinforcements from the Future, and also covering Power Rangers Dino Supercharge episodes 27, Home Run Coda. So, for the Power Rangers Wildforce crossover episode with Time Force, really, I was to feel that I had just gone on and seen the Lightspeed Rescue Time Force crossover, and I kind of felt that that was just a better crossover, just story wise. But the one thing that I feel that Wild Force does do a little bit better is to go on and combine both its monsters into one team, and I thought that that was a good idea between both mutants and orgs, kind of combining together. I thought that that was kind of a brilliant idea. I'm like, why couldn't have like crossovers do that more often, uh, and kind of make it really look good, because it rarely ever happens. So we go on in to the beginning of the Wild Force two-parter, where I thought it was kind of goofy with the whole like Taylor and Eric parking ticket thing. I thought that that was kind of silly. It gets them into kind of being upset with one another in the kind of later part, and we then have them kind of coming around to eventually being friends and being kind of good with one another. And so we kind of incorporate Rancic back into this story, and it seems that Rancic is on the side of good, to the point of it seeming him going through a real change of him being able to completely become good by the end of these episodes. So we then go on to have the Power Rangers Dino Supercharge episode, where, of course, not a big fan of Coda. Never really liked this character. I say character because, like, the actor might be fine. I just never liked the Coda character. I really just picked this episode because I liked the villain, and like what the villain does in this episode was pretty good. I liked what that overall did. So come to find out, Coda is to find a sport that he is to try and like. And so Coda is to find baseball, it seems. And when he is to kind of show off the skill, we have this coach that's me like, oh my god, I need to sign you to my team. And so Coda ends up going on to play ball. And it seems that he is Babe Ruthing every one of these hits. And to the point of us realizing that maybe Coda has had some cork in his bat. So we have our Rangers that are go on and to be focusing on their Power Ranger stuff, and Coda and Riley are like, wait a minute, like, we have this going on, we have that going on, and I'm sorry we can't be with you right now because we have this more important matter to focus on. So we eventually have the Rangers that realize that there's something going on with Coda's bat, and that ends up going on to have Coda realize that they need to focus on being Power Rangers instead of being baseball players. So, yeah. So with that said, let's go on into double fiving this bad boy up, because I think it's about that time yet again to, of course, go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about time again to spoil these episodes. So, in the beginning of these Wild Force episodes, we have Taylor that is to make her way on the road with a brand new yellow car. So Taylor is to go on and talk to a friend of hers on this car, like, yeah, I can't wait for you to go on and see my new car as I'm driving too fast. We have a woo police officer that goes on to pull Taylor over, and come to find out this ends up being Eric, the Quantum Ranger. So we have Eric that after is done talking with Taylor is to go back into the car with Wes, and we end up having Wes who is to ask Eric. It's like, well, hey, did you go on and you give her a parking ticket? And he's like, well, of course I did. And Wes is like, well, yeah, like, she's your kind of girl. And Eric is just like, shut up. So we go and have the mute orgs that make their way to 2002 via this bridge, or via underneath this bridge. And so they end up bumping into both Gindrax and Toxica, which were kind of just weird, goofy characters. And we have the two of them assuming that these mute orgs are just going to come with them and work with them, but they would be wrong. So the mute orgs go on to kind of toss both Toxica and Gindrax aside and go on to do what they were doing originally, which is kind of wreak havoc and destroy cars quietly. So we have the Silver Guardians, who I didn't realize what their name really was, but I guess they did have a legit name at some point. So the Silver Guardians go on to try and fight off against the Mutorgs, and we have Kyrid that goes on and kind of blasts away the Mutorg, and we have a bunch of the Silver Guardians that end up getting wiped out. We then have both Eric and both Wes then morphing together, so they try to face off this threat. We have the Red Ranger that goes on to use his Chrono Blaster, and it seems that one of the Mutorgs named Rofeng, and it's reversing the blast. So we have the Time Force Rangers that are kind of taken and getting beaten down. So we have the Wildforce Rangers that comes in to save the day, and we have Cole that comes in with a Falcon Summoner that is to be used as a blaster and not a bow. So he comes in to use this attack, and we have the Mutorgs that completely vanish. So we have the Rangers that go on to unmorph, and so we come to find out that Taylor is to be upset with Eric and Wes about that whole parka ticket thing. And so we have Wes and we have Eric who's like, well, hey, how about you just kind of leave the mutant monster duties to us? And like, really? Right, okay. So we have Quimerium, and so we have the Rangers going on and talking to Princess Shayla about how, like, they really didn't like the Time Force Rangers, but it seems that probably Taylor is to like Eric. So we have both Wes and we have both Eric that go on to need to get intel from Trip, like, hopefully thinking that there might be a possibility that some monsters in the future might have gotten loose. So when Wes calls Trip in the year 3001, we come to find out that Jennifer had gone on to kind of track down these three mutants, and now she's missing. That they lost her, and the three mutants had shown up in the year 2002. So we have the Mutorgs that are going on and talking to one another, and there's a person in the distance that is using a translator to find out what they're saying. And these mute orcs find out that somebody's doing this, and they try to attack that person, but they end up vanishing. So we have Wes, we have Eric, who want to talk to Taylor and want to see if they can combine information to see if these characters kind of know anything about these mute orcs and possibly how to defeat them. So we have Wes and Eric that are taken to Enemarium, however that's pronounced. So we have, as soon as both Eric and Wes arrive, we all of a sudden have them kind of flying by over their heads, the Eagle Zord. So they're like, well, hey, yeah, that's just my Eagle Zord. So Wes and Eric go on to meet Princess Shayla, and so we have this screen that has Trip on it, and he goes on and states that, of course, these things are to have combined and been mute orgs, and so it seems that the only person who can have a lot of information about these mute orgs is to actually be Rancic. And so we come to find that both Lucas and Katie are going to go on to meet up with Nadira and kind of coax her into talking to Rancic. So we go on to have both Wes and we have Cole that are kind of just driving around, and so while we end up having the cryo prison have Rancic, and Nadira is kind of meeting up with them, as well as Rancic is looking at all the Time Force Rangers. They're like, well, hey, don't pull anything because we're here. So speaking of we're here, we have Princess Shayla and Alyssa that goes on to, through this kind of water, see that the mute orgs are kind of on the attack. And so we have Alyssa that tells Cole, it's like, well, hey, they're back. So we have the Rangers fighting against the mute orgs again. And so the Wildforce morphs and Wes and Eric morph. So we go on to have Eric using his Quantum Defender, and we have Wes who uses his Chrono Blaster, and we also have the Red Ranger going on from Wildforce and using his Lion Blaster to try and take down these mute orgs. We also have the Chrono Saber and the Chrono Blaster getting used. So on these mute orgs. So we have Jen that is to come off this cliff and show herself, and is to use her blaster on the mute orgs. And when we start to see that the mute orgs are taking their weapons and combining them together, Jennifer is kind of telling everybody to get out of here, as this blast will go on to wipe them out. So we go on to the org Nexus, because man, do they like to use the word Nexus a lot on Power Rangers. So the mute org's going on to find Master Org, and Master Org is very pleased that he is to have some people that are to kind of work under him, and they want to like have their allegiance. So we go on to have the Emerilium uh, and the Wildforce Rangers returning there to state that they went on and like they weren't having a good outing, that they ended up losing. So they're just kind of ticked right now. So we have Wes that goes on and is to ask Jennifer, like, well, hey, like, how long have you been back here in 2002? And Jennifer is like, well, I've been here for a week. So we have Shayla that is to go on and state that it seems that the feature like screen is to kind of make Wes and Jennifer need to go to it. So Circuit is to be on the screen, and she is to mention, or Circuit is to mention that the time ship is being sent, as well as also uh, it needing to go on and go through the time gate via the Transwarp Megazord. So is how I can go on and kind of rattle all that off. So we come to find when the jet ship is, or the jet ship, the time ship is to land. We then find the Time Force Rangers, but then we also see Nadira and Rancic that are also there. So we go on to have Rancic that goes on to explain to the Rangers, like, well, hey, like, I've turned over a new leaf, I'm a new person. We even have Cole that states, like, well, yeah, like, I sense in his heart that, like, he's telling the truth. So Rancic goes on to Animarius, Animarium, and he goes on to explain how he was to have this origin story with the Mutorgs, because as Rancic was to wander around for a while, he then got on to find uh, the Mutorgs, and they needed help being freed from their statues. And Rancic was like, well, okay, but like I want to get something in return, which is to make him more powerful and is to have him like have weapons come out of his legs. So we excuse me. Let me pause here for 1 second. Okay. So as Wes is to go on and kind of thank Princess Shayla for kind of having them there, we go on to have uh, Wes that goes on and is to talk to Jennifer more. And we have Eric that goes on to kind of clean his quantum defender. And we have Taylor that's, well, hey, like, I might know how to kind of clean up your equipment too. I was in the Air Force. So we have Master Org that comes up with this power plant idea of wanting to take it so that way they can go on and create a lot of pollution. And that could go on and kind of give them a big benefit. So we then switch around to have the Rangers who are to find out about like the power plant attack, as Princess Shayla is to show like the water that is to show that these monsters are going to go on and do this. So Rancic is to plead to the Rangers for him to go along because he's going to negate their powers. So we have the Rangers that make their way to this location, and we have them be met by putrids. So we have both Jennifer and Alyssa that work together and do these kind of blaster attacks. We had Nadira that ends up getting scared by one of the demon, or one of the Mutorgs, uh, or the Mutorgs, and so Rancic tries to like defend his daughter, and he ends getting kind of attacked too. We have both Wes and Cole that are to go on and kind of check on Rancic, and we find that the Mutorgs are again trying to combine their powers together. And I think maybe like we might have had Cole, Wes, and Rancic kind of check on Nadira instead of Rancic. Maybe I got those a little confused there. So when the Mutorgs were to combine their powers together, we had Rancic that was to kind of take control of it and stop it from happening. And so we have Rancic that was stating, it's like, well, hey, like I had gone on and destroyed their mutant halves, and so I think you guys can go on and have a better chance of kind of taking these guys out. So we have the Mutorgs that are kind of running off here, and we have the lone lunar wolf ranger who goes on to kind of stop these guys dead in their tracks so that way he can go on and morph. So we have Trip, we have Lucas, and I think we have one more other ranger, I believe, who is to be kind of working on this reactor. So Trip is to make the call that the reactor is deactivated, and Taylor goes on to blast with the quantum defender and destroy this reactor, so these villains can't go on and do this again. So we have the Mutorgs that are with the Lunar Wolf Ranger, and so we then have all the Rangers that come in there and they morph together to take down the Putrids. And so we have the Lion Blaster that it's getting used and the Chrono Blaster combined together to kind of do this combo attack. We have the Lunar Q and the Quantum Defender that are kind of blasting a bunch of a bunch of just putrids. So we have the Quantum Defender that switches to the Quantum Mega Battle, and we have the Red Ranger of Time Force that changes to the Red Battle Warrior, and we have the Red Wildforce Ranger that turns into the Ennerillium Armor to be the Red Savage Warrior, possibly. So we have on the side the Wild Forest Rangers that were going on using the Crystal Sword or Crystal Sabers, and we had the Time Force Rangers that are using the Chrono Blaster. So we go and have the mutant orcs that end up getting whipped out after that, or beat down after that. So we come to find out when the Rangers are to make their way back to Rancic, come to find out Rancic is to become human again. And so we have Rancic who's even more happy. So by the end of this two-parter, we have Circuit and Princess Shayla that is to have this kind of picnic. And so we have the Rangers that are just kind of playing around, and like Max is dancing. We have at some point where Wes and Cole are kind of running to see who's to be the fastest. We had Nadira, that is to be in between two Rangers, both Max and both Lucas. But it seems that Nadira is to go on and pick Lucas as we go on to have Rancic, who's just kind of upset with uh, with Max's decision to go after his daughter. So that's how those two-parter ends. So let's go on into the Dino Supercharge episode. So hopefully I'm going to be able to get this right because there's a lot of stuff that happens at some point. So we have at the beginning of the Dino Supercharge episode, we have Coda that is to need to go into his own sport. And we seem to have Fury that's like, hey, like this seems like a good opportunity for me to bust out a monster that is to be tied with this theme. So we Coda goes on to have a tennis racket, and Tyler is to realize that Coda is to want to hit the ball too hard. Coda is like, no, I love hitting the ball. And so Ivan is to recommend a little, hey, like, how about you go on and you do rugby? Rugby is a very aggressive sport. And so Coda, it seems to go against all the Rangers. And we find that Coda is to kind of mop the floor with them, kind of drag them to the finish line. And so we then have Shelby that is to like, hey, how about you try golf? You can hit the ball just as hard as you want to. And so it seems that Coda does try golf, and he ends up kind of bending uh, the golf club with one strike. And so we have Riley that's like, well, hey, like maybe you can go on and maybe baseball's for you. So we then all of a sudden have Game Face come in, which the monster was the most intriguing thing to me about this episode. So Game Face comes in, and we have him with Vivix going on and consistently bringing in these certain attacks with the Rangers who have all morphed. So we have the serve the cannonballs, which is just this kind of like tennis racket, like kind of glowing balls attack. We then have the fatal footballs, the brutal baseballs, the power pitch. And then when we have the power pitch, we have Coda, who is to take this baseball bat and try to figure out a way to like counter all of these attacks. And we have Coach Ted, who is to go on and relieve his players and to watch on as the Power Rangers are going to face off against this threat. So we have, after Coda was to kind of reverse this attack, we then had Game Face that was to leave with the Vivix. So we have Coach Ted who's like, well, hey, hey kid, like, it seems like you have a pretty good strength swing there. Like, hey, have you ever decided to want to go on and play baseball? So we have Coach Ted, who is to be the coach of the Earthquakes. So it seems like, yeah, that seems like a great thing. And Kyle's like, well, yeah, I can go on and I can train you, Coda, on how to like be a really good baseball player. It's like with my experience in baseball and your skill, it's like we could really do some real damage. So Heckle is going on and talking to Game Face and saying like, dude, like you like failed miserably out there. And Game Face is going on and saying it's like, well, hey, it's not my fault. It's just that the Vivix are to go and consistently just be slacking. They're not motivated. They're like eating every 5 minutes. So We then go on to have, like, Heckle is like, all right, I'll give you guys another chance. But, like, you have a very short rope here. So, we then go on to have the Amber Beach Dino Museum. At some point it was called a zoo, now it's called a museum. Frickin' which one is it? Which one is it, show? So, we go on to find that Coda is going to, in the museum, be signed to this contract there for the earthquakes. And so we have Riley going on and stating that he's Coda's personal trainer. We have like uh, them going on and having Coda getting questions, and we have Coda who states that, like, he was born with a club in his hand. It's like, ha 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 ha, yeah, that's funny. So we have Coda that goes on to this baseball game, and so we have the Rangers that are going on and needing to practice this new weapon of theirs, and we end up having Coda and Riley miss this whole thing because they need to go on to this baseball game instead. So we go on to have Coda that is to go to this game, and the Rangers are kind of watching in the stands, and we have Ivan who's like, well, hey man, I have a ram's horn, and he blows the ram's horn. So we have Coda that does really well at this game, just cranking home runs, is to be signing autographs and signing people's shirts, is to go on and be, like, very successful at all this. So we go on to have Game Face that is training the Vivex, and so he is to just try to, like, to push them and, like, have them be, like, dodging boulders that are to be put out by the spike balls. So we, speaking of training, we have Riley that is training Coda on what he should do for being a baseball player. So we have Coda who is to be woken up early. We have Coda who is kind of switching, like, a burger meal for like a vegetarian meal. We have Riley that's going on and, like, training Coda, like, all of this etiquette, all these things. So we have Kendall who is to talk about uh, the Dino victory charge, and then it's being the one thing that they need to use against this threat. And so what happens is we yeah, let me all right. I had a little bit of information just kind of mixed up here. That's why I was kind of just going in a loop. Just like, where am I going? What am I doing? So we go on to have the victory charge, or the Dino victory charger, to be showcased here, and so the Rangers are wanting to practice with this, and this is when, like, Coda and Riley are like, well, hey, like, we have batting practice, we're busy, like, I'm sorry, we have to go off. So the Rangers go on to find Game Face with Wrench, and Wrench is going to state that that Game Face is having the wrong bat. He has the wrong baseball bat. because the bat that Coda was to have was to be like the magical bat that is very explosive. And so Game Face is stating at school, hey, like if uh my bat is all that explosive, then we can go on and explode Coda and kill him off. So we go on to have the Rangers who run off to this stadium and are to try to get Coda and Riley's attention. And so we have both Coda and we have both Riley who kind of just race off as they have to go on and also like wear shoes, especially for Coda for these baseball games. So we have the Rangers going on and saying like, well, hey, this bat is very explosive, so like we need to take this bat from you. And so they run off and they're trying to figure out what they can do with this. And we have Coda that's like, you know what, I think I need to go on and run along with the Rangers and just kind of like blow off this game. And Riley's like, no, what are you thinking about? Like, you have these special abilities and you're working with the team. And Coda's like, well, we were already doing that when we were with the Power Rangers. Like, our special ability is to be these Rangers, and our team is the Power Rangers. Like, we should have been focusing on that all along. So Coda runs off, and so he ends up taking the bat and he ends up flinging it in the air, and the bat explodes. So we then have the Rangers that go on and face off against Game Face, and we have him with the Doom Squad. And so it seems that this Doom Squad is to have these basketballs, and they're really attacking and beating down the Rangers pretty well. So we go on even to have like Fury go on to mention, it's like, well, hey, nobody's gonna beat this Doom Squad. We finally got something really going here. So we end up having the Rangers go and use their Dino Victory Charger as we have Kendall that's like running in. So they end up using the Victory Charger, and we have Tyler, or the Red Ranger, that goes on to get into his T-Rex supercharge and then the final strike, and they deliver this attack, and it works. So we have Heckle that's like, well, hey, if these Power Rangers are so interested in being in the big leagues, then like we need to make our monsters bigger. So, and like bring all of them and make them bigger. Like even the Vivexes and the Spike Balls. So we then have the Rangers call for the Dino Charge Megazord and the Batera Charge Megazord and the Plesio Zord. So we have the Rangers at first wipe out the Doom Squad. Then they go on and wipe out the Spark Balls. And so we have the Plesio Zord that is to use this attack on Game Face, that is the Plesio Blast and the Ankylo Zord Hammer Punch. So they then do the Dino Charge Saber and they wipe out Game Face. And so now Coda and Riley have to rush to get to their game. So we go on to have Coda, who is to make his way to be up at bat. And he ends up getting strike one, he ends up getting strike two. It's like, okay, like, are they going to lose? Because, of course, we have the coach who's like, well, hey, man, like, I want you to go on and give me one of those home runs because we need to win this game because this is the championship game. And Riley had gone on to tell Coda before, it's like, well, hey, like if you win this one, we're going to the championship game, and just heavily getting Coda just so distracted. So this is the championship game, and so we have Coda that goes on and hits this home run and wins. It's like, okay, great. So we go on by the end of this, and of course, uh, have Coda be kind of lifted on his shoulder or on the shoulders of people. It's like, yeah, celebrating the Coda is 2 of 1, and that's how we kind of play out this episode. I apologize for how many times that I possibly had paused during this video and whatever, because also it's very late in the day, hence why the sunglasses, so I can kind of ease my eyes a little bit. But also, it's way later than I normally would stick around to do reviews. I would normally be sleeping by then. Like a number of hours ago, I would have been sleeping. So my apologies. I'm a little bit tired. So with that said, I was just kind of hoping to get this out, but I was also just like, man, like these episodes were kind of rougher than usual to try to get this out also. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.